Hi, John. And since you're the only one, I mean, feel free to turn on your camera if you're comfortable and we can have more of a casual conversation. But feel free also to just interrupt and ask questions if you have any questions you'd like to get answered. Okay, so I'll just get started. My name is Dr. Fortini. I have been at KGI for 6 years now when we started the program back in 2018. And we really devised the Master of Science in Human Genetics and Genomic Data Analytics for a wide range of people, people who might be interested in personalized or precision medicine, people who were interested in drug development and using genetics and genomics to just invent better medications, for people who are interested in developing new clinical tests to identify diseases earlier or faster, and then also for the development of direct-to-consumer projects like the 23andMe and Ancestry.com tests. So those are ways that you could use this data to help individuals, but we also thought about using big data to help populations, because of course you can look at genomic data in either scale. And so we put it together with two real key things in mind. The first was just the strong foundation in human genetics, because if you want to understand all these fancy tools and technologies, you really do have to know the basics. But we also wanted to give our students the bioinformatics and industry skills that they could use to be very successful at companies or at clinical genomics labs, in a research center, maybe a big biotech or a pharma company, or a startup company that was doing more precision medicine. And so those skills translate to a lot of potential jobs. The other pretty exciting thing is this program was developed from a blank sheet of paper. We didn't just take an old program in genetics that had been around for decades and try to add in just a little bit of genomics and make it new. This was something that we really did sit down and think, where is the industry going to be in 10 years? And how do we make a program that gets our students there faster? And so it really was designed in this sort of genomics-centered way of doing science, which has in fact become the obvious way that people do research today. The other thing I wanted to point out is not just what we learned. So we have this foundational coursework in human genetics. We also have our applied life science courses that give sort of the context of how we use these tools in science and in innovation, and the genomics curriculum that is really tailored to just the MSGDA degree. But it's also about who you meet at KGI. So in the first year, about half of the courses are shared with our genetic counseling program. So you'll meet future genetic counselors that might be working at those same companies or at the same healthcare center. And so you already have your network for genetic counseling. But some of the other classes are taken with our other life science programs here at KGI. So maybe you'll meet a business and science student who will be in marketing at that company that you're working at. Or maybe you meet an engineering student who's going to be working at a similar healthcare site. So it's about building your professional network at the same time that you're building your professional skills. So it is a 21-month program. That just means 2 academic years in the summer in between. The first year is mostly didactic, and that means just in the classroom. In the summer, between year 1 and 2, everybody does an internship at either a genomics lab or a genomics company. And then in the second year, it's a mix of coursework and your capstone project. So let's look at some of these courses. The core genetics courses are the ones that are shared in both our genetic counseling and GDA program. The first class, Human Molecular Genetics, is one that I'm teaching right now. It's fall of the first year. We also have Genetic Disease Mechanisms taught by Dr. Bayless in the fall of the first year. In the spring of the first year, we then follow up with Human Genomics. That's another class I teach. And then we have 3 clinical classes that are taught by working genetic counselors. That's our clinical cancer genomics class, medical genetics, and biochemical genetics. And in the second year, you'll take a pharmacogenomics course to learn how we make different decisions based on genetic information to get the right dose of a drug to you. So all of those courses you'll take with genetic counseling students. On the other side, the second hexagon, we have the ones that are shared with other programs in the Riggs School here at KGI. And those might be students in our Master of Business and Science, our Master of Science program, or even our Master of Engineering. And so the first class is Intro to Bioscience Industry, And that is a real hallmark class here at KGI to really let you know the difference between lab work and what it means to be at a company. We have a clinical biostats class, and then we have 2 data analytics courses that are half courses. So here at KGI, we have some classes that are full semesters and some that are half semesters. And so this was a change we made directly in response to student feedback. They wanted more programming training. So in the fall, the first half of fall semester, we have a data analytics and Python course. And that's a shared course with lots of programs. And then that's followed up with a bioinformatics and Python course that's just for the GDA program. In the spring, we have a data analytics in R, and that's the intro to R programming, and that's followed up by the bioinformatics in R. And so this gives you that foundation in using programming to help you do data analysis. We also have a clinical trial design course that's taught by Dr. Bayless and healthcare ethics. So these courses are all shared with multiple programs. This next hexagon in the center, though, this is my favorite. These are the genomic data analytics specific courses. The first is in the spring semester of your first year. While everyone's taking human genomics together, we do have a genomics lab course that is just for the GDA students. So you get the theory all together, but there's some hands-on lab work for the GDA students. We have those 2 bioinformatics courses I just mentioned, the one in Python and the one in R. Then in the second year, we have 4 courses that are really part of the specialization to help get you a great career. The first is our DNA sequencing and variant analysis course, and that one helps if you're interested in doing variant curation. We have a genomic data visualization and management course. That's a course taught in Python, and this is in the spring, and it's at a good point to help you start looking at the figures for your capstone project that you're already doing. We have genomic knowledge translation. That's a spring course in your second year, where you learn communication skills so you can present all of your knowledge to people who maybe aren't experts in genomics. And the last one here is functional genomics. I always joke this puts the fun in genomics because it's all the functionals, very cutting edge research type of genomics that is going on. And so that I co-teach in the fall of the second year. So everybody takes all of these courses. Now we do have an opportunity for electives, and I'll talk about those on the next slide. But your electives will support your concentration, and our 3 concentration options are clinical decision support, clinical trial design, and assay development. And then the last portion is the capstone. This is a research experience at either a clinical, industrial, or academic site. So the concentrations are your opportunity to take electives. And it's just a total of 6 credit hours, so either 2 full semester courses or maybe 1 full semester course and a couple of those half courses. But it does let you tailor towards your interest. So historically, when we designed the program, we really were thinking about clinical decision support, and this has historically been our most popular concentration. And just some examples of classes you might take if you're in that one are human embryology or the microbiomics and pathogen genomics course. We also have a clinical trial design concentration for people who want to go into drug development. And so in this case, we highly recommend our pharmaceutical discovery and development series. And last, we have a concentration for all of our entrepreneurs. This is highlights are the medical diagnostics course, genetic engineering, or even our intro to the US food and drug law. So you know if you make something that you'll be allowed to sell it by the FDA. So while the didactic part of the curriculum is very important, we also put a lot of focus on our experiential education. So every student does a summer internship and a capstone experience. If you do both projects with the same company, that means at the end of your 2-year degree, you have a master's degree and 1 year of experience at that company. So you get to kind of double count your time. However, if you want to just get some different experience, maybe you did more of a clinical project for your internship and you want to do more of an industry project for your capstone, that is also possible. Here on the screen are just the logos of some of the places where students have done their internship or their capstone. And I'll highlight a few. Fabric Genomics is one of our partners that have had students for many years, 3 or 4 years that I can recall right now. Our closest educational partner is Genomenon, and they have students every year. And this year they're having 2 more capstone students. They also give us access to their software. And we have had many students over the years at City of Hope, which is just a few miles from the KGI campus. And so we've had people in both the research side of City of Hope and in the pathology side at City of Hope. For our experiential education, we also now have an assistant director of experiential education. That's Katya Durgam. And so if you were to come to KGI, you would work with Katya to get you ready for applying for internships and to help navigating the capstone process. So these are just some example titles of capstone projects that students have done. In our first year, we had some students working with the Rare Genomics Institute. They do pro bono reanalysis for people who have undiagnosed genetic conditions. And so one student wrote a natural language processing algorithm to look through PDFs instead of electronic healthcare records. We had someone in our first cohort that also was at LabCorp when they were trying to decide if they wanted to use long-read sequencing in their clinical pathways, and they have in fact rolled that out. So her project really came to fruition. We did have one person that compared different AI algorithms for finding pathogenic variants in newborn screening. We had one student working with St. Jude Children's Research Hospital on getting ethnicity information out of sequencing files, so we could, from underrepresented populations, to really do the correct assessment of whether something was rare or not. We had someone who was looking at existing exome data sequence and seeing how often we should reanalyze it. And then we also had some retrospective studies. So this one here, the Towards Personalized Medicine, was looking at sequencing data from past children who were patients at St. Jude to see if there were any predictors of outcomes. And last, we had a student working at a company called Kylos that was looking at ways that they could do controls for their liquid biopsy platform, which of course, before you market a test towards any humans, you definitely have to have adequate controls. So these are just some examples of the breadth of types of projects that our students do. So what can you do with an MSGDA degree? Well, most of our graduates work as a clinical variant scientist. And I say most, I think it's about 60% right now. Although our last group of graduates, not as many people are working in these roles as previous cohorts. So just random chance. It's sometimes called a clinical genomics scientist. And you either work at a large hospital system that has their own sequencing core, or for a company that offers this as a mail-out service. And the job is to interpret the variants that are found after doing sequencing, so any mutations that are found in their patient, to try to decide if they are in fact pathogenic or benign, if they could be causing the patient's symptoms or not. And so this gives you the chance to work directly with a patient file. You're never going to meet that patient, but you would be involved in their case and involved in their care. One of the good things about this job, even before COVID, it was often a remote position. And so if you're looking for a job that has a flexible schedule or remote options, I highly recommend variant curation. The next option is to be a genomic data analyst. And this is a very similar type sounding work, but now instead of working on just one patient's data, you'd be working on large data sets of many people that have the same condition. So you might work for a large research group or a hospital or at a biotech company that's developing new assays or new drugs in a particular space. Or you could be working for one of the sequencing companies that offers analysis as just an add-on service when you do sequencing. But again, the key is to use large data sets to discover new biology, right? You're going to use the data to help us inform how a disease works. And you could focus either on a particular disease like diabetes or cancer, or you could focus on a cell type like neurons and use that for many different diseases. And one particular way that you could do this job is as a research scientist in an academic lab. So if you really like wet lab work or doing some wet lab, some computation, or you're really interested in a specific disease or a specific researcher's work, then you could be in an academic lab and really be the person that analyzes the data that maybe the whole lab group is generating. I'd also like to bring out the emerging careers, especially the genetic engineering side. So this has really exploded in the last few years. How many startup companies are trying to do either base editing or genome editing with CRISPR and all the new derivatives of CRISPR. And so anytime you have one of those companies where you're doing genetic changes, you're going to have a lot of analysts to do the assessment of the off-target effects, how efficient it is. There are also companies like 23andMe that are launching new products. They have big research divisions. And there's also a trend now toward what we call health and wellness consulting. So we've spent a lot of time looking at how we can find disease-associated markers in our genome, but we have not yet spent a lot of time figuring out how we can use genomics to stay healthy. And so that's the sort of some of these aging labs are trying to figure out how we can use genetics to preserve health and not just understand disease. And for all of these, with a specialization in genomics, if you have the analytic skills, you can apply them to any number of problems. And then, of course, it might not be a straight one-step process to your next career. We've had students, after finishing their MSGDA degree, go on to medical school. And I love that because I want more doctors to actually understand genetics and genomics. We also have students who have decided that they really like the research side and they want to do a PhD in genomics or bioinformatics. And we have one student finishing up her bioinformatics PhD right now. And then some people got very excited about what we can do in genomics and just frustrated that we don't do it and we don't reimburse and we don't pay for it. So now she's a healthcare policy analyst. And so she helps advocate for the use of genetics and genomics in our healthcare system. And again, that is something that requires you to actually know what's going on, to know how it works, so you can speak passionately about why it should be offered to everybody. All right, so a couple of times throughout this slide, I have mentioned our alumni. They're an amazing group of people. We have two clinical associates. We have two people who work at Natera. Actually, three. I'm sorry, we have three now. Two are clinical variant curators. So they do that role of looking at individual patient data and trying to figure out why they have a disease or a disorder. And then we have someone at the same company, different title, of a clinical genomics scientist. She works on helping to develop better assays. So all three of them took the same degree. Two of them are working with patient data. One person's working on the R&D side on how they develop their tests. We have three clinical molecular pathology variant curators at City of Hope. So they work with cancer patients on somatic changes. We have one graduate who's now a computational biologist at a drug company called Zentalis. We have two analysts that work at the J. Craig Venter Institute. So they're doing research analytics. We have someone who's a variant scientist at Rady Children's Institute, so working with babies who are sick. We have a genomic lab data analyst at Helix. They do a lot of single-cell sequencing. We have a lot of graduates at Genomnon. They employ the most of our graduates. One of them, our first graduate that went to Genomnon, is now a program manager. And then some of the more recent graduates are variant analysts. So we have a total of 5 of our graduates at Genomnon. We also have a bioinformatics analyst at BioNano, which is a really cool optical genome engineering company. We have someone who's a research project manager at Dana-Farber Cancer Institute, a computational biologist at GlaxoSmithKline, so a big pharmaceutical company. All of them are using lots of genomic data now in their development pathways. And a field application scientist at Fabric. And that just means she goes out and meets people that are doing clinical genomics and helps them figure out what software solutions will be the best for their patients. Okay, so any questions, John, before I start talking about the application process?
Let me see. I do have some. Sorry, they're kind of slipping my mind.
Okay. Well, if you have any, you can either put them in the chat or I'll circle back after I go through. Go ahead. Mm-hmm.
No, yes, please, thank you. I'll make sure to write them down if anything. But
okay, perfect. All right, so the application process is pretty simple. Who should apply? The answer is everybody. If you're interested in exciting career in human genomics, we give you all the skills. Most of our students to date have been biology or genetics majors. We also have people who are applying to our genetic counseling program. And so if you're applying to both programs, all you have to do is check the box on your application. So fill out your genetic counseling application, check the box to also be considered for GDA, and you're done. But other majors that could prepare you for success are data science and computer science. If you are in biochemistry, because biochemistry very closely relates to genetics, and then bioinformatics, because we do use a lot of bioinformatics tools. And so if you understand how the tools work, when we start adding on the genetics and genomics, it'll make sense. So we do have a few prerequisites. We do require everyone to have taken a chemistry, at least a full semester of chemistry. We also require biology, and most of our applicants have both introductory biology and some specialties. So we don't have a requirement that you have taken either biochemistry or neurobiology or something like that. But we do hope that you've taken upper division biology courses, whatever those may be. And then we do require undergraduate genetics. And that is because we're going to start our program assuming that you know the basics, and we're going to take off on just the really specialty human genetics concepts. We do teach we do have a summer course at KGI if you haven't taken genetics yet. We do require a C or better in all of the prerequisites. We also want to see your CV or resume, a personal statement that really shows why you're interested in this field and why you want to make it a career, 3 letters of recommendation, and the application fee. We do take international students, but if you are international, we will require some demonstration of English language proficiency. So the first step is just to fill out the application. We review on a rolling basis, which means we review them as they come in. Because of that, it is an advantage to apply early to make sure we still have seats available. We will continue accepting and reviewing applications until the class is full. If you qualify for an interview, you'll be notified, and we do virtual interviews for the most part, but on campus is an option. And you'll meet with multiple different MSGDA faculty during that interview. And then after that is over, the admissions committee will meet, and we have a couple of options. We can accept you, we can put you on a wait list, or we can deny admission. And so the earlier on in the process you apply, the earlier you're going to get a final answer. We also do have scholarships available, and those scholarships are awarded based on the materials in your application. So there's not a supplemental application, but if we decide to accept, then we would then decide if any of our scholarship criteria apply. Okay, and the other thing I'll talk about is, in addition to our master's programs, we do have a summer program, and that is our clinical genetics and bioinformatics summer program. It is a week-long online experience where we talk all about clinical genetics, bioinformatics, genetic counseling, industry roles, and it's a great opportunity to get lots of experience. All right, so questions.
Yeah, sorry. Okay, I got them down.
Okay.
The first would be, I guess for someone who's interested in like more on the bioinformatics side, would you say that this program is like a little more friendly towards non-programmers?
Yes, I would say that, because we do have the opportunity to start from very basic. So lots of people come in, we don't require any computer science in advance. So the first data analytics in Python and data analytics in R. And so I'm just finding my slide here. Let me share my screen again. So these first 2 classes, data analytics in Python and data analytics in R, are taught for someone who has never done the coding before. If you come in with a strong background, you can test out of them, but we designed the program starting from scratch. The other real difference with bioinformatics programs is we teach bioinformatics as a tool that helps you understand the genome, but not for the sake of just writing tools. And so that's kind of the difference. If you're getting a bioinformatics degree, it's really about how you use the tools and how you make them faster and more efficient, and they can take up so much space on the servers, and you can analyze data in particular workflows. But for the GDA degree, we really want students to understand how to use the tools to get insights about the genome, whether you're getting an insight about a patient, why a patient might be sick, or if you're getting an insight on why a population might be more at risk for something than a different population. but it's really to make super users. So you're not intimidated by bioinformatics. You could use bioinformatics and feel comfortable in that. But that you understand the data itself in a real deep level. And so we do have some people that then go into bioinformatics careers, but they are at an advantage that they have all of this knowledge of medical genetics and human genomics, that they know how to apply the tools in really interesting and important ways.
Gotcha, thank you. One question I had about the summer internship.
Mhm.
I know that you said there's someone who is like dedicated to assisting students with this, but are most of the experiences in person or remote?
I would say most of them are remote. Before COVID, they were all in person. Then the COVID summer taught us that like actually remote ones work really well. So like the company Genomenon is a remote company. The whole company works remote. And so all of the internships and all the capstones are done remotely. For some companies, they like you to do the internship in person. So we just had a student finish an internship at Gilead up in the Bay Area. We've also had students from other programs intern at Regeneron in New York, and they had their internship was in person, but then they were given the opportunity to keep working on their project remotely for the school year. And so sometimes it might be a little bit of a blend, like during the summer when you're full-time, you're there, and then during the school year, when you're part-time working on it, that's going to be remote.
Okay, thank you. Let's see. Another one I had is how big is like a cohort size for this class?
So currently we have 13 in our first year class. The class that just graduated was also 13. So the smallest we've ever had is 6 and the biggest we've ever had is 13. So we're kind of in that like dozen range. And I would anticipate that next year we're going to be in that 12 to 15 size again.
Great, thank you. Those are all the questions I have for now. Everything else was pretty much answered during the presentation.
Okay, great. Well, you definitely feel free to contact me if there are any questions that come up. Let me just get back to my last slide here, where I do have my contact information, and you can always go through the admissions team to get questions answered as well.
Thank you very much then.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thanks for joining, John.